Hi, everyone. My name is Allison. My pronouns are she, her. I'm the executive director of the Gallatin County Democrats. I'm excited to have Shane Morigeau with us this evening. Shane is the candidate for Montana Auditor, and I know it's a lot longer than that of a title. So Shane, you'll have to educate us on the full title of the office you're running for. But we're here tonight just to have a conversation and get to know you a little bit better and ask some questions. And Shane, thank you for being here tonight. I know there's a lot going on and we're really grateful. So Shane, if you'd like to just tell yourself or tell us a little bit about yourself.
Sure. Well, I'm standing just outside of the fence line of the National Bison Range where, I grew up just down the road from, and, have worked on our team in my day job, tirelessly to ensure that, we have the connection with the bison herd, that members from the tribe I come from, the Salish and Kootenai tribes, can continue that relationship with our bison that we have right here in Lake County here on the Flathead Reservation. So I'm actually just coming home from work and, still working a day job, which, makes it tough when you're campaigning to work a full-time job. And I'm an attorney on top of it. So we have quite a bit of things on our plate, but, I've, with a good team and a lot of great support, like all of you, we've been able to really run a really good campaign, and we're excited about the upcoming election. Really excited about the fact that our polling looks really promising. Our polling shows with my profile getting out, I beat my opponent by 3 to 4 points. So we're really excited about that. And hopefully you guys don't get too many trucks driving by as I'm standing out here, but I'll try and talk as loud as I can. So, I real briefly, I was born here, born and raised here in Montana, and right here in the Lake County area. And I've been a state legislator for 2 terms. I went to forestry school at the University of Montana. I went to law school at the University of Montana. Been practicing law for about 10 years now. And I was a criminal prosecutor as well. And during the 2 terms in the legislature, was really proud of the fact that we got a lot of great stuff done, passing 9 bills over 2 terms, passing the Montana Promise Act, which really was intended to help get low-income students into college to give them opportunities here in Montana. Also passed a legislation to extend the statute of limitations for victims of sex abuse, child sex abuse. And, that piece of legislation actually, was really critical in me making the final leap into running for this office, because the only opponents I had to that legislation was insurance companies. And so for me, that was kind of an eye-opener to see companies putting their financial interest ahead of, victims of sex abuse. And so when I was looking at where I come from, right here, and the needs of the community I grew up in, where a lot of low-income folks still struggle to get access to quality and affordable health care, and looking at the great work we got done with Medicaid expansion and protecting people with pre-existing conditions, getting access to folks across the state, doing more on the preventative care side. This office just seemed like a likely fit for me because of all the various, life experiences and employment experiences that I've had in my life. Also, the state auditor's office, also known as Commissioner of Securities and Insurance, it regulates all the securities and insurance industries in Montana, and it also is in charge of investigating fraud when it comes to these industries. And my criminal law background also seemed like a good fit for this office. So I just felt like this was a place where I could step in and really do some good for people in the state of Montana. And, what we've really seen in my office and all of the statewide offices is, I think when you look at the candidates, the Democratic candidates, we have a lot of amazing candidates this election cycle. We have a lot of people that, in my opinion, are actually really connected to the communities, who are really hard workers, who are really committed to improving the quality of life of people in our communities and across the state. And And I've had the opportunity to see a lot of those folks in action on the ticket. And, you know, I just feel like there's a big difference when we look at our candidates versus the candidates that we're running against. You know, like my opponent is a guy who didn't really live in Montana, wasn't a Montana resident even up through, I believe, 2018, when he actually got cited for fish and game violations in Montana for lying about his residency. And, you know, it doesn't matter to me if he came to Montana yesterday or, you know, 30 years ago, 40 years ago, 100 years ago. What matters to me is that we have values in the state where we respect each other. We put Montanans first, which I feel I've been able to do. That we have honesty and integrity. And one of the things that continues to bother me about my opponent is the fact that he committed violations, and yet even when we asked him in a debate, when he's been asked about it in other formats, he can't admit that he's done something wrong. He can't admit fault. And I think that, you know, that's a value in our state where people can say, I did something wrong, you know, let's move on. But instead we've seen a lot of people continue to make excuses. And you know, that's just a trend that I feel like we see on the other side of the aisle with the candidates that we have in the statewide races. We have a lot of people that I feel are just out of touch with our communities. You know, people who, you know, my opponent lived in the Yellowstone Club. Even when he lived here, I don't feel like that's reflective of Montana values and an understanding of what people in our communities need. So, you know, that's what I feel we have on our side of the aisle with our questions. So, or with our candidates. And, you know, really, I feel like, you know, we want candidates, and I feel I'm a candidate that is committed to doing this, that really is committed to putting people first in Montana, being an independent voice. That's going to protect consumers and bring the consumer protection minded piece back to this office here in Montana. That's not going to open the floodgates for junk insurance, short-term junk insurance plans, for health sharing scams in Montana, like we've seen with the current auditor. Someone who is actually going to step up and protect people with pre-existing conditions, do everything I can to make sure people have access to healthcare, doing more to get people more transparency across Montana when it comes to insurance costs generally and healthcare. And also electing a state auditor that puts our public lands, really prioritizes access for our public lands, but also funding our school systems, our public education for our students. I'm a product of our Montana public school system. I'm proud of that. And I know how important our state trust lands are for funding students that attend our schools, because I'm a product of that. My opponent isn't. So I just think there's so many differences, major differences in not only just our experiences as candidates and my experience as a candidate, but my life experiences here in Montana. And I'm ready to get to work for folks and start putting people first again. I guess I would just say that one thing that hasn't been talked about a lot as of recent is the fact that homeowners insurance in the state of Montana continues to go up. It's actually skyrocketed over the last couple of years. And meanwhile, while my opponent is trying to take claim for work that the legislature has really done, and I was a part of, in reinsurance, the reinsurance program, which dropped rates for health insurance. I worked on air ambulance legislation to reduce costs for that in the state legislature. But here we have a guy that's really honed in on one area and tried to take claim for that when it was really the legislature. And we're losing focus of issues like the rising costs of homeowners insurance, and the fact that housing costs across the state are skyrocketing as well. And we're really putting people in a position now where they might not be able to live in their homes and have to sell their homes, people who've lived in them for years and years. So I really appreciate the opportunity to talk to you guys today, and really looking forward to the opportunity to win this race. And I can't do it with all the volunteers and all the great workers that are out there working tirelessly for all of the candidates. And again, I just can't stress enough that I'm really excited to be running with so many great candidates on the Democratic ticket. We have a lot of amazing candidates on the ticket, and we need everyone's support, because a lot of us are running against candidates like I am, who is a self-funder, multimillionaire. We're expecting him to dump a ton of money into his race here right at the end. So we're going to need your help. And, there's a lot of great candidates in Montana, a lot of great people. And I think people care about electing people that are from here and understand our values.
Yeah, definitely. Shane, I think you hit on so many valuable topics right there. But I think the one that stands out to me the most is that you and your Democratic colleagues care about other people and care about Montanans and our well-being in general. And so I'm really grateful that you've stepped up and run, that all of the other candidates on the slate are running as well. You all are just amazing and doing great work, and I can't wait for all of you to be elected. So there's a couple questions that have popped up. So you mentioned homeowners insurance, this rising cost of that. How will you look at lowering the cost of insurance for Montana residents? Homeowners insurance, health insurance, all these, all the types of insurance that we need in the event of things that life happening.
Yeah, so a big piece of my campaign has been transparency, trying to do more to doing educational tours across the state to get people more information about these industries, so they're more informed, so that they're aware of what's going on, and then going to the legislature and working with the legislature and other parties, across all the political spectrums, because I think everybody cares about making sure people are able to afford health insurance, that they're able to keep their homes in the state of Montana. So finding ways where we can work together in areas to bring more transparency to costs, and working with industry when we're talking about this. I would rather find ways where we can work together to find transparency, or in areas of providing more transparency, than have those industries come in and just oppose the legislation. I think people want to know what they're on the hook for when it comes to these industries, and I think people want more transparency. I hear it all of the time. So I'm committed to try and do more on that front, so people, are informed on what they're actually paying for. And I think that puts pressure on markets. I also think that, we do need to be working harder to look at the regulatory framework to find ways where we can recruit more competition in Montana, but not sacrificing consumers in doing so. So we need to be reaching out to find ways where we can bring more companies in to provide more affordable options and more market competition. And really, when I talk about that in the context of really all of the insurance industries and options across Montana that we buy, but especially in those that continue to rise and rise and rise. And, looking at what the reasons are for that and having conversations with industry, and trying to find a way where we can start leveling those out. And, a big piece of that too is the rate review process. Why are we more expensive than California? Why are we more expensive than Washington? Why are we more expensive than states where the property values are higher in a lot of places? So we really need to start looking at this and going through these a little more detail when we're doing the rate review process.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that makes sense. Nate also was kind of asking, what is your plan to fight against insurance companies? But maybe you're not going to fight. Maybe you're going to work together a little bit more with them. Lead the market a little bit.
Yeah, I think my intent is, they're not going anywhere, right? And we need insurance, and we want people to have investment opportunities. We want to work with these companies. I don't have the mentality where it's like, I'm going to take these companies out, but I do want to hold them accountable. And I do plan to not rubber stamp things for companies. That means having more conversations with them, becoming partners, and sitting down and trying to find ways where we can negotiate and talk about the pricing and ways that we can work together to ensure that they're not continuing to go up like they have. And, I'm concerned, especially when it comes to the health insurance sector. What are things going to look like in the next couple of years in the state of Montana, especially as we deal with issues like COVID? What is the landscape going to look like after kind of things sort of settle down a little bit with the reinsurance program, which pumped money into the market to offset high risk folks in those markets for insurance companies? which allowed them to reduce rates for Montana ratepayers. So what is that going to look like? And those are the things we need to start looking to in the future to make sure, we're getting ready for that, because we know the guy who's there right now is on his way out. We know that his replacement supports short-term junk insurance. We know that his replacement supports health sharing programs. And a lot of these programs are insurance. They're operating under the guise of not being regulated right now in the state of Montana. We need to make sure that we're not allowing companies to undermine the markets across the state of Montana and let certain types of niches of companies cut corners and then put more pressure on the companies that are following the rules in the state of Montana, because what that does, it undermines the costs that we're all paying on these other markets, and it's not fair. So I'm all for looking at more options. I'm all fair for trying to find ways to recruit more competition to lower rates, but I'm also not for allowing certain companies to be able to cut corners and undermine everybody else.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Holding them accountable, I think, is key. So thank you. What can we do to help your campaign? What do you need?
This has been a grassroots campaign from the get-go. I often joke around that I grew up a poor res kid on the Flathead Reservation. And I don't know a lot of, big money donors, because I grew up in a place where, I ask a lot of people from where I grew up my entire life, and I get hundreds, thousands of donations from people that chip into small amounts. And that's made a huge difference. It's allowed us to compete and have a chance at taking on a guy who's dropped around $100,000 plus into his campaign, especially right at the end of the primary. So we're expecting that he probably will do something similar. So we need people to donate, to continue to donate and help us out, because that's how we're going to get our ads out. We of course are excited about our polling, but that polling only matters if we're able to get our profile out in front of people. So we need help to get resources in to be able to get our profile out through our ads, and to continue to help us find ways to tap into getting more information out in front of voters, whether that's newspapers, radio ads, and continuing to find ways where we can get volunteers to help with calls, getting volunteers to help with LTEs, op-eds, getting information out in the papers, online, sharing information in any way you can. I mean, it doesn't have to be a major commitment. It can be a commitment of finding something and sharing it with your friends online. So there's a lot of ways you can participate, and we all know that some folks have they're at different places in their lives, and we know that. And Montana is a place where there's not a lot of we don't have a ton of multimillionaire donors in the state of Montana. We have a lot of just hardworking folks in this state who are trying to provide for their families and make sure they're covering all their costs. So we know what that's like, and we just are so grateful for all of the support people have given us, because we know that for some folks that's a lot. Giving me $5 might mean meals for their family for a day. So we know that means a lot to people, but it truly does make a difference for our campaign, and that's what it's going to take to win.
Yeah, absolutely. I believe that you have some handmade cloth masks that you're doing as a fundraiser. How did that come about, and who's making them?
Yeah, so my sister and my nieces make masks, and they made me masks and actually drew the designs for me. And put those on the masks, and had a local person where I grew up print those for me. And yeah, they turned out very nice. And that's one mode of, if folks, Shibu can share the link to be able to donate through that particular link if someone wants a mask, and we'll mail them out to folks. But yeah, this is it takes a community effort and a family effort in campaigns in Montana, especially when you're, it's you and a small team. And so you got to be resourceful and find all the ways you possibly can to, get your name out there and get people excited.
Absolutely. Resourceful, resilient, creative. I think that's been the name of the campaign game for everyone this year. So that's awesome. I think I'm going to go buy a couple masks from you, because I
Thank you.
think that I have seen them. They're beautiful. So um, I do have one more question. It's a
Okay.
serious question. What do you do for fun?
Oh, well, um, I I like to get outside. I mean, the other day I went out hunting, and it's just one of those things where, like, I don't care. One of the most enjoyable things about being outside and going hunting or riding my mountain bike is just breathing the air, getting the different smells of the things around me. I mean, the other day I went out and I walked the mountains with a friend, um, and it was early morning and I could smell really get the scent of sage from off of the all the sage that we were walking through, and that just like made my morning, because I was just walking through and I was like, man, this is what, being alive feels like. Is you get to enjoy, especially in Montana. Being alive in Montana is, we have all these special things that even those little things that sometimes you take for granted, and for me that was just a good reminder, getting outside and being able to walk and just smell the different smells of the plants, the natural plants around me, just made me happy. It put me in a happy place, and I grew up outside. I fought fires, and I grew up hunting and fishing and just spending a ton of time outside as a kid here in Montana, and it's what I often say this all the time. I honestly don't think there's anywhere in the world more beautiful than Montana, and I've traveled a lot of places, and I still stand by that.
Yeah, absolutely. I couldn't agree more. And I'm glad that you're still getting outside despite the full-time job and campaigning. So it's good to prioritize the reason why you're running. So yeah, go ahead and say, just thank you, Shane, for being here.
Yeah, thank you for having me, and thanks for the opportunity. And if you ever want me to jump back on and chat with folks, I'm always glad to do so.
Yeah, I think we definitely should try this again, and try and get some more people here. But I really appreciate your time and the insight, and keep up the good work and good campaigning, and just thank you for what you do.
Thanks. I think this might be my third or fourth interview I've done outside on the trunk of my car, or in a backyard of a friend's. It's just, I mean, I kind of like it in a way. I know we have a noisy highway over here next to me for this one, but hopefully everything came through okay.
It was great. Yeah, you were awesome. So thank you for taking the time, and have a safe drive the rest of the way home.
Thank you. Thanks.
All
Have a
right.
good night.